Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. Today we are talking about the 2022 spring game for the Florida Gators. Honestly, a team that I've been watching a lot. I had a lot of question marks about Dan Mullen last season, kind of losing control of the locker room. They bring in Billy Napier, and the vibes during the spring game were extremely high. Thursday night under the lights, I enjoyed it. I'm going to go room by room, starting with the quarterbacks, and kind of just give you guys a feel for what my takeaways were from each position group before we get into it. Just wanted to say thank you guys for all the support you guys have shown to the channel. 750 subscribers. That is just mind blowing to me. I love talking about football. I love talking to football with you guys. Let's get into this 2022 spring game for the Florida Gators, a team that I'm very excited for this fall. So, the quarterback battle, that's obviously the headline of spring camp and will be in the summer camp. It's Anthony Richardson's job. I think he cemented that with just an absolutely great spring game tonight. Jack Miller didn't even look bad. I mean, he had that red zone interception, which was not good, kind of forced it into like triple coverage. Obviously, a throw, he liked that back. But Anthony Richardson looked sharp. The things that you thought were some of the stuff he struggled with, like just consistency. Like, he has the arm talent. He obviously has the athletic ability, but it's just making those consistent throws and good reads and fast progressions were the thing that seemed to be missing in his game. I thought he was very, very in tune this game. And he's where can I get my Heisman ticket for Anthony Richardson in 2022? Because he has all the tools in the toolkit. Massive arm, big frame, very good athlete. He looked awesome. I think it's his team. He's QB1 heading into the 2022 season. I'm very excited for this cat. And let's get back into the room that I think is the most important and exciting group, possibly the best running back room in the country. I highlighted a bunch of guys: Lorenzo Lingard, Montrell Johnson, obviously the transfer from Louisiana Lafayette, coming over with Billy Napier, DeMarcus Bowman, and Naquan Wright. So you got three transfers, two former five-stars. Lorenzo Lingard, obviously at Miami, transfers into Florida, and DeMarcus Bowman, who is at Clemson, comes into Florida, and then Naquan Wright, who's been there. This running back room is absolutely loaded. From what I was reading, Lorenzo Lingard has been the one most impressive during spring camp, and he's a guy that I've been very excited for. I was excited for him last year, not unfortunately, but Dameon Pierce was obviously the guy last year, and rightfully so. In fact, he probably should have gotten more carries under Dan Mullen last year, because going back, evaluating his film for the 2022 NFL draft, extremely impressive. But Lorenzo Lingard has all the tools, very big frame, fast. He cuts hard. He was running the ball really hard. Montrell Johnson, a guy that was very productive for Louisiana Lafayette. I thought he looked good today. He's a guy that in my notes, like, he runs hard. It's not as flashy as maybe DeMarcus Bowman or Lingard, but he seems to find those hidden yards, falls forward, really tough running back. And then Naquan Wright, a guy that hurt not playing, but you know what he is. He's the most proven back in the backfield. He's going to be good. He's going to play a role, but I think Lorenzo Lingard is going to be RB1 here. And he's got track speed. Him and DeMarcus Bowman have verified track numbers, like extremely fast athletes, both former five stars. Pedigree's off the chart. And I'm excited because that's what Billy Napier liked to do at Louisiana. You look at what they did with Elijah Mitchell, Levi Lewis, and Montrell Johnson last year. Like, they like to get downhill in the run game. And I'm really excited for how that offense is going to look with Anthony Richardson's threat on the ground. And then just a staple of really, really talented running backs. I noted Lorenzo Lingard. He looked awesome. He's going to be that dude. I think Montrell Johnson is going to be very good. And then DeMarcus Bowman looked awesome out of the backfield. He's another guy that he runs the ball hard. He's not as big, but he's got some serious burners. He's very elusive. All these guys, I think, are going to play a major factor in a team that I expect to run the ball a lot. So it's going to be really vital to have that running back depth. They're just studs, man. They're just absolute studs. Let's get into this wide receiver room that I think, because of the offensive struggles, specifically in throwing the ball last year, you didn't really get to see the talent that they have. In 2020, during that COVID year, really, really talented group. Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts, Grimes, Van Jefferson, a loaded wide receiver room that just didn't look as good. But there's a couple of guys that I thought really looked good today, and guys that I'm very excited about in this 2022 season. I'm going to start with Justin Shorter, another former five-star who transferred over to Penn State. Hasn't really found his found his legs yet at Florida, but I think that was primarily because last year it's just a lot of turnover, the QB roulette, just a lot of different quarterbacks. The offense was just really inconsistent, but he's got all the tools. Really, really big frame. He had a nice catches this in the spring game tonight. But I think he's a guy that can go over 1,000 yards. I think he'll lead this wide receiving group. But there's some other guys that I wanted to note too. Xavier Henderson, another guy who's a top 70 recruit. He's also a guy that didn't get too much work, but I'm excited for him. Trent Whittemore had a couple of good catches. Then Keon Zipper, he also looked really good tonight. He's big. He's a good blocker too. So in kind of those two tight end sets that I think Florida's going to try to do, again, Billy Napier, that's kind of what he did at Louisiana. It's going to be important to have big tight ends who are willing to block, and Zipper's going to be one of those guys. Trent Whittemore also looked good. I think we touched on him. And another guy that I didn't really know, he wasn't really on my radar, but had a nice couple of catches with Jack Miller's, Jaquan Frazier's. Never heard of him before the spring game. I was doing a little reading before. Obviously, I've watched a lot of football or Florida football from last year, also kind of evaluating the guys on film. Thought he looked really good. Big, physical guy that's really good with the ball in the air. Jack Miller hit him on a few back shoulder routes. He's impressive. I think this wide receiving group is not, it wasn't necessarily bad last year, and just they weren't really able to get a good prolific passing game for a multitude of reasons. A wide receiver room that I'm pretty optimistic about. And then the offensive line unit, I thought this might have been quietly the best unit of the day. That first team offensive line really, really looked good. Absolute road graders. And then I wanted to touch on that the transfer. I thought Osiris Torrance, one of the guard transfers from Louisiana, he's big. But Cameron Waits, another transfer from Louisiana, 330 pounds. He was with the second team running at right tackle. He's also nice. He missed one block, but he's a road grader as well. And I think that's what the Florida team is going to try to do this year is really use those running backs, use Anthony Richardson's legs, and get downhill with that run game. And I thought that offensive line looked absolutely dominant, especially getting downhill in the run game. Very optimistic about how that offensive line unit looked. Now, how spring games work is if one unit looks good, maybe the other unit's not looking good. One thing that was relatively different from the other spring games I've watched is this was a competitive game. Guys were going low, like full tackle. There were no abbreviated. They weren't blowing many plays dead. Like this was a competitive game. And it's because they got a lot of young guys. Only 7 seniors on this team this year. Obviously, with the COVID eligibility years, a little bit different. But yeah, they're a young team. And I think Billy Napier wanted to get a feel of what guys can go play ball. He was letting them play. There weren't many whistles being blown dead, and it was a competitive football game we got to see, which I was excited to see. But thought the defense probably didn't look as good. Obviously, the defense was just brutal last year. Todd Grantham going out mid-season. What plagued them last year? Penalties and tackling. And it's not like they don't have the recruits, the talent to do it. It just looked like they were they just struggled with physicality. And I thought that might have reared its ugly head a little bit this game. And again, it's hard to say, was Florida's offense just really cooking, or was that defense kind of weak? Let's start with the defensive line. Gervin Dexter, I think, is the guy that you got to be looking to. It's his third year here. He's a top, I believe, top 20 recruit, bona fide 5-star. I thought he had a couple nice plays from the inside. He's gonna be a guy that you really need to impact the game on that defensive side of the ball, kind of stepping into a leadership role. Brenton Cox, a transfer from Georgia way back ago. I thought going into last year, he was number 6 edge guy in my 2022 NFL draft ranks. Didn't have a great year along with that whole Florida defense. He's coming back. He's got a really big tool bag of rush moves. I think he just needs to be able to be a little bit more consistent. He had a quiet game. I don't think he played too much tonight. Obviously, being a 5th-year experienced guy, there's not much need to get him that much playing time. But he's another guy that if you want this defense to take some steps from how they looked last year, Brent Cox, Gervin Dexter, those are going to be some guys that you need to produce. Desmond Watson is just an absolute monster. Again, another guy that I wasn't too familiar with. He is one big dude. Reminded me of Marquand McCall from Kentucky. Just a big belly, strong guy, 2-gapper. He was doing some work that I liked tonight. Looking at the linebacker class, this was a group that they lost a lot. Muhammad Diabate obviously transferring to Utah, and Tyrone Hooper transferring to Missouri. Tyrone Hooper is a guy that really flashed in the bowl game. as Florida fans, you probably wanted him back. He's a good football player, but he's out. Ventrell Miller, a redshirt senior, a guy that's been I feel like he's been at Florida for a very, very long time. Very good football player. He had a nice play at the goal line, just absolutely sticking Lorenzo Lingard. Look for him to be the leader of this unit. Um, a linebacking unit that I think was a lot more talented than how good they played last year. And so Billy Napier bringing in the new staff, hopefully you can get a little bit more production out of them. I didn't think they looked particularly good this like tonight during the spring game, but a unit that I would look forward to really take some steps up next year. And then finally, the secondary unit. I think this unit's going to be led by Trey Dean and Rashad Torrance, those safeties. I think both of those guys are really, really good football players. They've both been around for a little bit. So I think that secondary unit is going to be led by those two guys. Jalen Kimber, a transfer from Georgia, a guy that was still slated to start on that University of Georgia team last year, which if you're starting on that team, you're a good football player. He got banged up, didn't end up really getting any playing time last year. Jalen Kimber transfers to Florida, obviously pissing off a lot of Georgia fans. He looked really good, especially during that first drive, getting his hands on a few passes. I think he's definitely vying for a spot at one of those cornerback spots. I think there's a bunch of guys that you can look for some production at that cornerback group. Again, the defense didn't look great. Donovan McMillan had a nice red zone. He's tough. Like he had a few. Another guy that wasn't totally on my radar. He was out there competing. He had a nice red zone interception. The secondary, a whole defensive unit that you're looking to kind of take that next step. Donovan McMillan, he looked good to me. And again, as a recap of this spring game, I think the biggest takeaway is the play of Anthony Richardson. And it's not like the flash plays. Like he's a flash guy. He's got all the talent in the world. What you're looking for him to do is to be a little bit more consistent, be efficient. And he was that today. I think he had 3 incompletions on the day. Looked in control of the offense when they went up tempo. He was getting guys lined up, making really accurate throws, allowing his wide receivers to work after the catch. And it's a talented wide receiving group. You need to be able to do that. And the story of the day, I think, also is the running backs and the offensive line. The running game was really good. I think it's going to be just a four-headed monster. I think all these guys are going to be able to get playing time. I think Lorenzo Lingard is going to be the guy. But I was extremely impressed with this team. I thought the energy was awesome on a Thursday night. They had a lot of recruits in the building. I wouldn't go as far as say Florida is back, but they're coming back. I think Billy Napier's the man for the job here. A team that is so talented. They don't you like to see them recruit a little bit better in Florida, but they get talent in the room. You just need to be able to be consistent and utilize that talent. Billy Napier's a guy that has a lot of attention to detail, and I think he's going to get the most out of these guys. He's obviously going to look for the transfer portal this summer as well. Hopefully keep Jack Miller in the room, but this unit is I'm optimistic about Florida. Just finished up the spring game now with a little fireworks. The vibes are high. The vibes are high in Gainesville, in the swamp. I'm excited for Florida this season. Give me an Anthony Richardson future on the Heisman. Go Gators, baby. Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you guys are into this content, and we'll be back with some more NFL draft content and college football content later. Peace, y'all.